הראשונה שלנו זה פרופסור יהודית קורנברג, גרינברג. היא מנהלת ומייסדת של התוכנית ל-Jewish Studies ללימודים יהודיים ברולינס קולג' in וינטר פארק, פלורידה. היא חוקרת ומלמדת בתחום של מחשבה יהודית המודרנית, נשים ודת, מבט בין תרבותי של אהבה והגוף האנושי, זה בעצם התחום חשוב שלך. ספר שהיא פרסמה בנוגע לנושא של המושב, כן? זה Better Than Wine, Love, Poetry and Prayer and the Thought of Franz Rosenzweig. היא פרסמה שני כרכים, Encyclopedia of Love and World Religions, כן? ועוד הרבה דברים. מה שמעניין שהיא באמת עוסקת בהשוואה בין יהדות והינדואיזם, כן? שזה גם, לפי שהבנתי, הפרויקט האחרון שלך. והיום היא מדברת אצלנו באנגלית על Love as Dialogue, Reflections on the Life and Thought of Franz Rosenzweig. בבקשה.
קודם כל, בוקר טוב, קהל נחמד. אני רוצה להודות לחנוך על ההזמנה החמה להשתתף בכנס הזה, וכמובן לאפרים, שאנחנו כבר, החברות שלנו, הקולגיות שלנו כבר נמשכת 29 שנה. נפגשנו בכנס בירושלים ב-1987. כך ואשתו שושי, אנחנו כבר, יש לנו חברות עמוקה. אפרים, הזמנתי את אפרים לבוא אלינו לפלורידה. אנחנו נפגשים בכל העולם, בכנסים, בבשורות, במפגשים של חגיגות, בני מצווה, חתונות, הכל. אז אני מאוד שמחה להיות חלק מזה, וכמובן להיות איתך ביום הנחמד הזה, וכמובן לאחל לך המשך פעיל של המפעל שלך, לא רק המפעל האקדמי, אלא מפעל החיים שלך, שלכם. ובאמת תודה רבה לכולם. אז אני, כמו שמישהו אמר אתמול, מישהו אמר שכדי להכיר או לדעת את שפת האם, צריך ללמוד שפה אחרת. אז אם תיתנו לי את האפשרות לדבר באנגלית, שזאת השפה האחרת שלי, אבל היא כבר לא אחרת. היא חלק מקיומי ויומיומי. Professor Meir's retirement in this conference present an auspicious occasion to reflect on the contributions of Rosenzweig's life and thought to the ideal of life as dialogue. As I acknowledge Professor Meir's contributions in his teaching and scholarship in modern Jewish thought in general, and Rosenzweig in particular, I wish to highlight specifically his book that I had something to do with, Letters of Love, מכתבי אהבה, Franz Rosenzweig's spiritual biography and oeuvre in light of the Greetly letters. The book came out within my series for Peter Lang. This was the first systematic study that you did of the intertwining of Rosenzweig's personal experience of love and his ideas of the theological notion of revelation as dialogue of love. In my talk this morning, I will recapture Rosenzweig's pivotal assertions and evaluate how his views align with the emergent trends in the scholarship of love. There seem to be two directions with regards to recent scholarship of love. In the sciences, love is talked about enthusiastically, from positive psychology, anthropology to neuroscience. Scientists are working on explaining the phenomena of love in light of the sociality of primates and attachment theories, hormones such as oxytocin, brain circuits, mystical experiences, and compassion, and altruistic behavior's positive effect on our health. On the other hand, in the humanities, especially in philosophy and literary theory, love is often treated with suspicion. Friendship and family ties, seen through the lenses of postmodern critique, appear as subtle power relations. Affectionate love is relegated to the private sphere. Often, love is identified with the darkness of aggression and violence. Furthermore, as is well known in theological circles, Christian thinkers have ignored the Jewish story of love. Many scholars tend to dichotomize Christianity as the religion of love in opposition to Judaism as the religion of law. Therefore, it is appropriate to underscore Rosenzweig as a modern Jewish thinker who uses the trope of love on the basis of biblical and rabbinic writings to construct a philosophical theology. Thus, he contributes to a correct understanding of love in Judaism, not only vis-a-vis Christianity. Moreover, I believe that we can deploy his insights into love and Shir HaShirim in the broader area of the comparative study of religion. Rosenzweig's notion of love influenced my own scholarship in numerous ways. In teaching a comparative religion course, I developed the subject of love as a category for analyzing a variety of beliefs and practices. This led to my Encyclopedia of Love in World Religions, and more recently, in the context of my engagement in the comparative studies of the comparative study of Judaism and Hinduism at the American Academy of Religion, I've undertaken a comparative study of Shir HaShirim and the Gita Govinda, a 12th century Sanskrit poem depicting the dialogue of love between Krishna and Radha, sometimes referred to by British scholars as the Indian Song of Songs. In this project, I construct a dialogue between these two sacred poems, employing Rosenzweig's insights into the nexus of human and divine love. One might challenge the attempt to identify love as the primary theme in Rosenzweig's writings. Did not Rosenzweig, after all, attempt a theory of everything? In the star, time, history, speech, theology, sociology, Judaism, Christianity, art. Indeed, I concur with the comprehensiveness of Rosenzweig's project, both in the star as well as in his later writings, in the forms of essays, translations, and letters. At the same time, I also believe that a case can be made that love, especially the imperative to love, informs his project as a whole. In this regard, the star is a systematic philosophy of relations that are derived from the idea of love as a reaching out to the other, whether God and world, God and human, or the interhuman. Rosenzweig sought to grasp the all in the star, not from an absolute standpoint, but rather from the standpoint of the finite individual human being who he finds situated in the middle of the course of the all. A course Rosenzweig understands as beginning in particularity and advancing through the relations between particulars to an ultimate redemptive realization of unity. Rosenzweig is not basing his philosophy on an exciting peak experience or on the hormonal sensations of love. Rather, he's trying to establish a theory of the relational self and contextualize it in the life of Jewish and Christian communities. In reviewing the themes and categories of the star, we find the trope of love as a recurring theme in the second part of the star. Here, love is identified specifically with the category of revelation. Yet, as we follow his systematic construction of the course from revelation to redemption, we find that the imperative to love informs redemption as well. Was Rosenzweig a helpless romantic who saw the world from the rosy perch of ecstatic love? By virtue of his having chosen the trope of love to establish the structure of his system of relations, one might suspect this possibility. Rosenzweig constructed the process from the infancy of self-awareness into the full blossoming of self-knowledge using the idiom of love expressed in acts of dialogue, faith, kindness, membership in the community, and full-fledged liturgical praxis. But the choice to think about love does not make one a romantic. Upon reconsidering Rosenzweig's views of love and eros, the indices of idealism, romanticism, as well as of postmodernist thought can be discerned. What I find most profound about his discourse on love is his ability to merge the romantic notion of being seized by a lover, albeit in the context of the divine lover, with the imperative to love. In other words, love and duty are in alignment rather than in opposition to each other. His definition of love renders it not merely an emotion, but an event, and prepares the ground for the notion of responsibility as ethics in the face of love's instability. It is not unreasonable to think of Rosenzweig as having written a theory of love. Love is described in the most detailed and affective terms in part 2 of The Star. It is an intimate yet systematic portrait of a deeply felt and experienced state. Love relationships, contexts for speaking about love, and genres include God's love for the soul's love for God, love of neighbor, love of stranger, love of community, cosmic love, the poetry of love, liturgical expressions of love, and the sociology of the meal as embodiments of love. The content of Rosenzweig's ideas of love offers further nuances into the phenomena of love. A unique characteristic of his discourse is his grammatical analysis of biblical verses, which is integral to his grammatical thinking, broadly construed as Sprachdenken, or as the new thinking's primary feature. Despite his reliance on Shir Shirim to illustrate what mystics and philosophers have for centuries found so compelling about the song, its deeply erotic and romantic language that depict the numerous contours of passionate love, Rosenzweig, in fact, reaches a number of conclusions about the meaning of love that transcend its associations with mystical or romantic experience. Foremost to him, love is the awakening of the self, a dialogical relation, a decision, an event, and an imperative. Whereas commonly held romantic views of love include destiny, fate, union with the beloved, his midrashic analysis and explication of verses from the song yield a much more sober view of love. Love is not only a blissful state between lover and beloved. It is an imperative and is implicated by guilt, duty, and responsibility for the other. Instead of basking in the joy of fulfillment, it engenders yearning for the other that transcends the self and initiates an other-regarding life, a life for the other. In his reflections of love, he collapses the lover's discourse expressed poetically with the grammar of law expressed imperatively. Rosenzweig introduces his discussion of love with a sharp focus on divine love, where he addresses the nature of God's love for the human being, specifically the soul. This account diffuses the boundaries of divine and human love through his depiction of the soul as a loyal, faithful woman whose raison d'etre is the receiving of the gift of love of her lover. In gendering God as male and the soul as female, he portrays the dynamic between them in hierarchical terms. God is the active party, the lover, and the soul is the passive one, the beloved who sits at the feet of her lover awaiting his next move. This notion of activity and passivity, of giving and receiving, is often understood in erotic terms, but could also be contextualized in the dynamic of maternal love, especially to the newborn. In both, self and other are enclosed within a sphere of sensing and sensation, in an intimacy and privacy, oblivious of others and invisible to others. Furthermore, he explicitly critiques the dialectic of human and divine love in the hermeneutic tradition of Shir HaShirim. The point is not that the poem is about divine love rather than human eros, but rather that human eros can be understood neither as simply human, all too human, nor as simply divine, agape. As he declares, love cannot be simply human. This discussion of divine love forms the basis of his concept of revelation. He systematically translates theological terms into philosophical ideas throughout the second part of the Star. His translation of the theological concept of revelation is intended towards a furthering of his category of love and philosophy of relations, especially the idea that being loved is a precondition for loving others. Being loved is a precondition for loving others. The divine presence is not a projection of the self, but indeed an event of heteronomy, an encounter that results in the soul's response to and testimony of the divine. Her testimony of the gift of love constitutes an affirmation of the presence of the divine and the birth of religious faith. Quoting from the rabbinic source, he states, "If you testify to me, then I am God, and not otherwise." In Rosenzweig's description of divine love and the soul's awakening to her own, the notion of self-discovery and self-realization is accentuated. This is evident in his emphasis of the transformation of the soul from darkness, self-enclosure, muteness, into dialogic speech. To the lover's question, Ayeka, the soul's readiness is expressed in Hineni. It is significant to note the biblical theological backdrop for his discourse and the sequence of the divine quest for the human thou, followed by sin, guilt, and eventual faith. One of the pivotal claims that Rosenzweig makes about divine love is his objection to endowing God with the attribute of love. Rather, God loves freely. His love is an occurrence and not his essential character. Analogizing divine love in human terms, Rosenzweig states, the lover is not a man who loves. That he loves is not a descriptive modifier of a man. It's kind of a subtle point, but it's an important one. In considering this notion of the temporal and fluid nature of divine love, the contrast with the claim that God is love is found in numerous Christian theologies, starting with the Gospel of John, is apparent. The statement, God is an all-loving Father follows other attributes such as omniscience and omnipotence. We find here the difference between an essentialist approach to love as static. God is love, that's static, right? And a phenomenological approach that emphasizes activity rather than qualities. If love is not an attribute, does this qualification move us in the direction of knowing about love without certainty or ascertaining love's unpredictability, its groundless ground of being? Here we discern not only the limits of our knowledge of God, but the warning against attempting to comprehend the all from any other place but the finite and the particular moment of the experience. As Rosenzweig states it, love hesitates to make a likeness of the lover. The portrait would reduce the living countenance to rigor mortis. He clarifies this idea of the unique and singular nature of love's occurrence with his emphasis on the temporality of love and the absence of an enduring nature of love. This is the route which begins anew with every new day. It is entirely in this moment. It learns with each day that it has never yet loved that piece of life which it loves as much as today. Love is an event that we may recollect from our past, but we cannot rely upon it. Love, like his and Buber's notion of dialogue, is designated as love precisely because of its newness, not because we recognize certain qualities that fall under the category of love. If there's any quality or certainty about love, it is the quality of instability. Love wants to be stable, but it can only be by living wholly in the unstable, in the moment. On the other hand, despite its fleeting nature, love has transforming power, enabling the process of exteriority of the self. In this encounter, the I discovers herself as a subject. Being called by God, the soul is ready to respond, hineni. Ready to receive, the I hears the first commandment, love me, which is Rosenzweig's abbreviated version of ואהבת את אדוני בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. Only the lover can command love, he says. He explains, commandment is the voice of love itself. This explanation of the nature of the commandment and its distinction from law is one of the outstanding features of his theory of love, and problematizes the reductionistic view of Judaism as the religion of law. The response of the beloved to the lover who commands is integral to the moment of bestowal. The nature of this commandment is such that it embodies the love it commands. The commandment embodies the love that it commands. This description might work well to illuminate the significance of the commandments to love God. After all that is being asked for here is to love the one who has already loved you. The element of spontaneity is evident in the I and thou relationship of God and soul, as it is in erotic love and friendship. However, Rosenzweig leaps from this private and intimate experience of love, which entails a single commandment, to the public sphere of love, the imperative to love the neighbor. ואהבת לרעך כמוך. He constructs a merger between the most private experience of being loved by God, the command to love God in return, which is really integral to the love bestowed, and the imperative to love the other who is outside this encounter. The sequence in Rosenzweig's thought is from an intimate, affectionate, and erotic bond to ethics. In neighborly love, we note non-spontaneity, self-sacrifice, self-denial. Love of God is here transformed into love of neighbor. Love can only be love of particularity. God speaks to the individual and demands our turn toward other individuals, one at a time. This is the secret of love. In love, we speak the language of particularity all the time. In helping the blind cross the street, in kissing our mates goodbye. Love, but love understood, not merely rhapsodized, is the answer that the new thinking provides, because love touches the irreducible selfhood of the other and offers the possibility of a bridge. Love, as Rosenzweig had it, represents a decisive counterweight to the love that is sentimental, self-absorbed, primarily self-love. For against the love that romantic poets have described and celebrated, what undergirds Rosenzweig's theory of love is the imperative to love the neighbor that renders our life incomplete without at least the possibility of seeking, to use Levinas's reference, the teleological suspension of self-interest. The move from the private intimacy of God and the soul to the public square of human intersubjectivity, however, does not entail the abandonment of the transcendent personal God of revelation. Like Kierkegaard, love of God is decisive and the point of origin. But more importantly, for Rosenzweig, once love has happened to us, our myopic conceptual framework, which often divides human and divine, is merged into a unified whole. Thank you.
תודה רבה, יהודית, להרצאה היפה, מלא אהבה.